Hello, my name is Jake Gillette, and I'll be presenting to you the human stress in the addition of work media. So, as a little bit of an introduction, I would like to explain how I got to this topic. So, I work as a maintenance manager at my local park, and I was gifted the opportunity to receive a work phone so I could keep work calls and personal calls separate so it didn't build up on my personal phone. But in exchange to this, I'm expected to handle it responsibly, do the usual work conduct stuff. But it also brings apart a lot of challenges that I kind of had to learn the hard way, and it brought a lot of lessons that I got to learn along the way. I'm not going to share any of those with you, but I think it would be nice just so you could realize how I got to this topic. So, when it comes to methods of research with any topic, really, I feel like it's important to indulge yourself in the topic. And for myself personally, I like to conduct experiments when it comes to research because I feel like that primary source that you can use in your own way is very important and very crucial to really getting all that you can out of your topic. So, in this, for one of my pieces of evidence, I actually conducted my own little experiment, and I'm not saying that it's going to be anything massive or groundbreaking, but it's something, just to break the ice a little bit and expand just your typical quotes and pieces of information from scholarly articles, that kind of thing. So let's get started with the meat of things. Basically, I want to focus on the fact that work media and technology adds to stress of the everyday life. And this essentially boils down to three reasons. So it adds work hours, it adds more punctuality and responsibility to your everyday life that is not needed, and you are receiving more technology in a place where you're receiving work technology. You're getting more technology in a society that's already technologically advanced. And to a lot of people, this can be stressful, especially people from an older generation. So, for added work hours, this is a piece of evidence where I kind of conducted my own experiment. So, as you can read, for this piece of evidence, I decided to conduct my own experiment rather than go to an article or website. And the experiment setup basically went like this. So, I have my own work phone, and my father has his own work phone. So I basically took the two of us, and while we're at home, out of work, I made sure it was out of work. I kept track of how long calls were going, and I basically marked up text to be about 20 seconds each on average. That's obviously give or take a few seconds. Nothing's going to be on the dot. It's a rough experiment, I get it, but it's a number to at least get my point across. So I did this for 2 weeks, the 2 weeks that we had from week, I think it's 10 and 11. So, my findings. My father averaged about 15.6 work calls outside of the office per day and 25.78 work texts outside of the office per day. His calls averaged about 9 minutes and 42 seconds. I averaged 7.68 work calls outside of the office per day and 24.3 work texts outside the office per day. My calls averaged about 5 minutes and 24 seconds. As I mentioned before, I marked down texts at about 20 seconds each. So, just to put this in perspective for all of you, with all of this added up, on average, just using the averages, my father would spend 2.67 hours per day outside the office on his phone talking about work. This does not include marking anything down, writing anything down. The extent of it is just talking on the phone and texting in a professional manner. So, that comes out to 18.69 hours per week that are unpaid. In my own bubble here, I'm averaging about 0.83 hours per day. And in a job such as mine, as a college student, that's a lot whenever you get to roughly six averaged unpaid hours per week that could be going toward my funds. So, as you can tell, that's kind of a big deal. I mean, look at that. 18.69 hours per week. That is insane for not getting paid whenever you're expected to act like a professional outside of work during your own personal time, which is what I'm trying to get my point across with. So, I also use some little quotes, as you can read here. In choosing not to address these evolving issues, the Supreme Court stalled, hopefully only briefly, the growth necessary for the law to fully and objectively meet the constitutional demands in modern public workplace. So, this quote links to this. I just wanted to put something legal in there. Really, this quote toward this piece of evidence isn't as strong. but I'll get into this specific court case that they're talking about in my next piece of evidence. Technology's impact on the workplace tends to progress at a more rapid pace than our judicial system's ability to resolve the issues created by it. So, essentially what I'm talking about here is, after you read that about my father, how he's averaging 18.69 hours per week outside of work on his work phone, it can be a little astonishing. And you're thinking to yourself, how can this be legal? How can you not be paid for this? This quote really answers that basically technology is just evolving in the workplace so fast that our judicial system, though they may try it, cannot keep up. So, to my next point, added punctuality / responsibility. This is where I bring that court case I mentioned in. So, the court case, City of Ontario, California versus Kwan. If I'm going to give a brief overview of it, basically you have this cop from Ontario that received his own professional work phone. And he eventually was fired because they ordered the transcripts from it, and he was basically sending sexually explicit messages. And those messages caused him to be terminated. And he essentially sued the police force to give him his job back because he's saying that it violated his Fourth Amendment right to privacy. And this is a big deal because whenever I talk about being more punctual and responsible in a professional manner outside of work unpaid, this is exactly what I'm talking about. This man is expected to act in a certain way on his own free time outside of work on a separate phone, not being paid for it, nothing. So I think that's something to deeply consider whenever it comes to adding stress, adding anxiety. You're basically working for free. And that's what I'm trying to prove here. So, yeah, you can get basically my analysis right here, in addition to be required by almost all companies to answer work calls. Workers are subject to guidelines when using their work media, making them be more professional outside the office. This kind of forced behavior increases anxiety outside the office. I'm sure that if we have a piece of work technology among us, we all know the struggle of this. I know that this was a hard lesson I had to learn as a very young 18-year-old receiving my first piece of work technology, how to properly use it, how to improperly use it. But the guidelines are so specific, it brings unnecessary stress to an already stressful, connected society that we've all read about in this class. This is just a little quote that I found. Results present a life cycle orientation whereby job needs and preferences change with age. In fact, many have promoted theories that apply life cycle approaches to job-related attitudes and behavior as important contributions to psychological theories of aging. So, what I'm talking about in this quote, what Morris is talking about in this quote, is, and I'm sorry I couldn't get all of it to get the context in, he's basically talking about how older generations coming with age receive this new technology, don't know how to act with it, and as soon as they get a new piece of technology, they're expected to act a different way with it, which comes very challenging to a generation that never grew up with this kind of technology and this kind of responsibility. And that's essentially what I'm just trying to portray, is the added stress and added anxiety. This is just specifically for not specifically. Older generations struggle with this a lot more than younger generations because younger generations grow up with this kind of technology and the guidelines are a little easier to follow, but you get the point. There is significant evidence, Davis 1989, Davis et al. 1989, to suggest that the most critical belief underlying an individual's attitude toward the behavior of adopting a new technology in the workplace is her or his perception about the usefulness of technology. So, essentially what I'm talking about here, and you'll read it here, is the workplace does not care about your view on technology. The workplace does not care about your workplace preference with technology. All they care about is how they expect you to use their technology and if you're using it properly, which again is something that a lot of people are not okay with. A lot of people struggle to find the benefits of all of this technology in their lives as it is, but they're getting this added stress and added anxiety that comes with work and professional media that is basically just set in their lap, and they're told, if you're not going to do this, you're not going to be out of a job. Which is what I talk to actually in the next piece of evidence. So, in conclusion, we're basically talking about how work technology can take up to hours of unpaid time and unneeded professional behavior during personal hours. Employers push the limits of legal technology usage and violations of privacy. Workplaces force technology on employees who may not be qualified to use said technology and brings risk to their employment. That's what I was saying before. Employees are basically told that they have to use this technology in a certain way if they want to be employed. Job markets and job requirements are growing by the decade, and they're growing by the generation. They're all different. The job requirements for my generation are very different from the job requirements from last generation in terms of technology. So that adds a ton of stress to those who are already employed. Employers really push this legal limit because it's really just penny pinching. In a place like my work, we only have one guy in my entire department that has a phone, and that's me. So we don't have to have guys staffed 24/7 to take calls because I have my phone, and I'm not getting paid for that kind of stuff outside of work. And that's something that the Supreme Court has looked into a lot, and most recently I told you about that case. But the ongoing evolution of technology is really outpacing the Supreme Court's rulings, and really I don't think that we're going to get anywhere with that. And as I portrayed in my experiment, work technology can take up to hours of unpaid time, and really, we all know that that's kind of bogus. If you have a piece of work technology, I'm sure that you felt it before. Why do I have to answer my phone? Why do I have to answer these emails? But it's all with the job description. And that's something that we have to be aware of, because that we've read many articles in this class already about stress and depression and all these side effects that come with the generational technology. So we're getting more of that. Is the point that I'm trying to push across. We're getting a lot of unwanted anxiety and a lot more side effects because we're dealing with this other half of technology that's really only unlocked in a professional manner. So basically that's my research project. I would just like to say that I had a lot of fun doing this, and I had a lot of fun experimenting myself with my own project, and I would highly recommend it to anybody else that chooses to continue this kind of stuff. So thank you.